My dear students, the diagram in front of you is the human brain. It contains forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain, and it also contains a rod-like structure that is attached to the hindbrain that's called as spinal cord. So far, the parts of the forebrain are concerned. They are olfactory lobes, cerebral hemispheres, and diencephalon. So far, the olfactory lobes of the forebrain are concerned. Olfactory lobes are 2 in number. That's a pair, small, solid, club-shaped bodies, widely separated from each other. They are covered by the cerebral hemispheres and are thus visible only in the ventral view of the brain. Each olfactory lobe consists of anterior olfactory bulb and posterior olfactory tract. The posterior olfactory tract later on terminates into the nose, what we call as the nose. They contain the chemoreceptors of smell or odor. The second portion of the very important portion of the forebrain, that is cerebrum, they are 2 in number, or they are also called as cerebral hemispheres. Hemispheres in the sense, the cerebral hemispheres are just like the half sphere of a ball. They form the largest part of the brain. Cerebral hemispheres form the largest part of the brain and occupies about the 4/5 of the weight. 4/5 of the weight of the brain. They cover all other parts. They lie side by side, being separated from each other by longitudinal central fissure. This is the central fissure that separates the left part of the brain from the right part of the brain. Left part of the cerebral hemisphere from the right part of the cerebral hemisphere. At their bottom, the hemispheres are connected by a large curved tract of myelinated axons. It is called as corpus callosum. Its function is to tell one side of the brain what the other side is doing. Anterior and posterior ends of the corpus callosum are downwards, forming genium and splenium, respectively. This is available to you in the form of a diagram. There are fissures and lobes also. And so far the diencephalon, that is the third part of the forebrain. Diencephalon. So far this diencephalon is concerned, it's a slit-like cavity, the third ventricle. The thin roof of this cavity is known as the epithalamus, a thick right and left side as the thalamus. The hypothalamus is visible in the ventral view of the brain. It has optic chiasma, where some of the fibers of the optic nerves cross to opposite sides. There is also epithalamus. Epithalamus is not formed of nervous tissue. It consists of diameter only, hence it is of relatively little significance. The second part of the brain, that is called the midbrain. The midbrain. In the forebrain, there are some grooves and uprights. They are called as gyri and sulci. Gyrus is the upland and the deepening groove-like structure. This is called the sulcus, and the plural is sulci. The midbrain is also called as mesencephalon. Mesencephalon. This mesencephalon is significantly very small. It consists of 2 heavy fiber tracts. They are called as cerebral peduncles. Or crura cerebri on the ventral side, and 2 swellings termed superior and inferior cuticuli on each side of the dorsal surface. The superior and inferior cuticuli of each side are referred to as corpora bigemina and of both sides as corpora quadrigemina. The central peduncles connect the hindbrain with the forebrain. There is a very narrow cavity, the cerebral aqueduct or iter, which extends through the midbrain. That extends through the midbrain, which can be viewed from the diagram also. So far the hindbrain is concerned. Hindbrain is the third part of the human brain. Hindbrain contains little brain or cerebellum, medulla oblongata, and the third part is the pons varolii. This is pons varolii. This is cerebellum. These are the parts of the hindbrain: cerebellum, pons varolii, and medulla oblongata. Cerebellum is also called as little brain because it is very large and well developed. It forms about 1/8 of the total brain. It forms about 1/8 of the brain mass. It lies below the posterior portion of the cerebral hemispheres and above the medulla. It consists of a pair of large lateral tracts, lateral part, the cerebral hemispheres, and a small median portion, the vermis. There is medulla oblongata, which proliferates later on into the spinal cord. It is the lowermost part of the brain. It is conical in form and encloses a cavity, the fourth ventricle, that is present in this medulla oblongata. And one more thing is there that is called as pons varolii. It's an oval mass called the pons varolii, which lies above the medulla oblongata. This is pons varolii and this is medulla oblongata. It consists mainly of neurofibers which interconnect the two cerebral hemispheres and also joins medulla with the higher brain centers. Hence its name is pons, means bridge. And this is all about the morphology of the human brain. There is also a fluid. That fluid is called as cerebrospinal fluid, what we call as a CFF, cerebrospinal fluid. All the ventricles of the brain are continuous and lined by a columnar, ciliated epithelium, what we call as ependyma. They contain lymph-like extracellular fluid. This fluid is called as cerebrospinal fluid. This fluid is present in all the ventricles of the brain. This fluid is secreted by choroid plexus by filtration of the blood and is very important for the working of the brain. It is highly alkaline and has a specific gravity of 1.005. It is about 100 cubic centimeter of this fluid is present in the CNS. It has a number of functions. Cerebrospinal fluid has a number of functions. First of all, it acts as a shock proof for the brain and it maintains constant pressure. It keeps the brain and spinal cord moist. These are the functions of cerebrospinal fluid. There are more things to be discussed here. They are called as meninges of the brain, what we call as the protective coats of the brain, protective cover. The brain is surrounded by 3 protective coats or connective tissue besides the bony cranium. These are called as meninges, or singular is called as meninx. Number 1, pyometer. This pyometer is the inner man meninx, very thin, highly vascular, closely invests the brain. It is covered by a simple squamous epithelium. The second part of these meninges, arachnoid. It is the middle meninx. It is also thin but is non-vascular. The third part is durameter. This durameter is the outer meninx. It is highly thick, tough, and lines the cranial cavity. Its internal surface is covered with simple squamous epithelium. This is all about the morphology of the human brain. This is sufficient for today's lecture.